Hey everybody, Matt with Freestand here. Got another Matt on the show today, Matthew Parkin. He is a 3D generalist, is how he describes himself. But essentially what that means is he mainly creates 3D animations, which are 3D characters, and he animates those characters as well for motion graphics. But and we'll dive into this, but there's like stills, right? 3D stills, and then there's also 3D video, which would be the motion graphics piece of it, right?
Well, there's also like game design stuff too, where you actually rig up your model for like animation in video games and whatnot. So there's a lot of things you can do with it.
Tons of stuff.
Mhm.
So anyway, thank you for coming on and meeting with me. I appreciate it. I reached out to Matt on Upwork. I put out a job post out there that said, "Hey, I'm looking to interview." Some people, most people were really confused. They were like, "What?" They were like, "Sure, you can interview me, and we can go over your project." I'm like, "No, no, no. I actually want to interview you about, what you do." Um,
It seems pretty straightforward to me. You just want to know what I do.
yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Some people were confused, but anyway, all right, Matt. I think the first thing that we'll do is if you could break down for us kind of like what you do exactly, and kind of the different genres of 3D animation, 3D art, and kind of the whole space. I think that would be really helpful for
Like,
people.
so you want to know exactly like what I do as a freelancer, or just
Well,
what?
yeah, if you could explain like what you do as a freelancer first, and then I guess we'll dive into like the different sections of 3D art, 3D animation, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I'm basically what people would call as like a 3D generalist. So I've learned how to do modeling, texturing, animation, rigging. Um, as a freelancer, I picked up a lot of different skills. I started off in like advertising and maybe even some light like movie and comic production kind of stuff. But my main passion and what I focus on now is more like game design. So I do characters, various assets. Sometimes I do environments and lighting and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of all over the road if you really want to get into detail on it.
Mm. So game design. So what types of games are you working on, and like exactly what type of work do you do for those games?
Well, lately I do a lot of mobile stuff, but I've recently picked up a couple of Unreal Engine 4 type work. So like PC type gaming.
Mhm.
For the mobile design stuff, I do everything from like the concepting to like the modeling and the rigging and the animation. They primarily picked me up as an animator, but then they figured out, oh, you can model too. So they had me modeling and doing some concept work and stuff like that as well for like weapons and different various vehicles and stuff like that. And for the Unreal Engine stuff, I'm doing a lot of character design, some environment layout. I'm basically their main art guy. So I'm basically doing everything except for like the programming and hooking everything up.
What was that? You said Unreal Engine or something?
Yes, yeah, Unreal Engine 4. It's one of the big game engines that's free to use. I mean, there are a whole bunch of different engines, but the main ones are basically, I think there's one called Godot. There's Unity, of course. There's Unreal Engine, and of course, there's other ones like Game Maker, but they're more specialized, I think, in like pixel art based games.
And what are these engines? I'm
And
not very familiar with them. Yeah.
okay, basically, game engines are made to run your game. Like think of it as like a car, right?
Hmm.
You have like all your assets, like you have like your models, your animation, and like your textures and stuff like that. A game engine would be used to basically run all that and make it and basically combine it together. It's like a real-time rendering kind of
Got
thing.
it.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense. Okay, so it's like pretty much ties everything together. It ties the
Mhm.
different models together. It ties all the different background processes that make the game function, and
Yeah, yeah.
it brings it all together. Okay.
Like all the
Eh,
back end stuff, all the programming. It basically runs your game.
Wow, that's really interesting. And do people so then there's a few game engines out there. One of them is called Unreal Engine,
Mhm.
and they hire you to create various things for games that are being built within Unreal Engine, or do you create art or models that like, and then they have like a marketplace that people can pick up different models and use them for the games? How does that work exactly? Like, what are you building, I guess, for? Who are you building for? The Unreal Engine, the company, or is it
Oh,
people that are using Unreal Engine?
yeah, it's just people that are just using Unreal Engine. I'm basically
Got it.
hired on to create their assets for them and put them in the game and put the materials and the textures together, that kind of stuff.
That's really interesting. I had no idea this existed. Like
Uh,
I had no idea like how games were made, till now.
oh,
Um, so that's really cool. And what types of people? So people that are using Unreal Engine, are these people who are making games, like PC games? Are these people that are making console games? Does it make every type of game? Anything you want?
you talking about the engine or just the
Yeah,
people that I'm working with? Yeah, the engines.
the engine and then the people that you're working with.
Yeah, I mean, granted, every engine has their pros and cons for sure. But yeah, you can make virtual reality, augmented reality, mobile, PC-based stuff, console stuff. Yeah, they're basically designed to work on almost any platform. So Steam, GOG, whatever you want to do.
And then
However, like I said, they all have their pros and cons. Like Unity is a lot better for like simple stuff like AR and like mobile stuff is just lighter. While Unreal Engine is better for like it's easier for artists to work with for like PC based stuff and even like cinema stuff. They do a lot of like architectural stuff on it too.
mm. And the people that you're working with, are they, I guess my first, what types of games are they building first? Are they mainly PC games,
Uh,
computer games?
for the Unity based stuff, 9 out of
Mm.
10 times it's either augmented reality or mobile. I have every now and then like a virtual reality type game, but most of the time it's mobile. And most people who ask me to work with Unreal Engine is mostly PC and console based stuff.
That's cool. And are these people like, one or two guys sitting in their bedroom coming up with a game? Are these like bigger companies? Does it vary?
It definitely varies. Most of the time, when it's just like a guy sitting in his bedroom, most of the time those games don't really take off. But every now and then I'll get like for example, a lot of the mobile games I work with another guy named Matthew who owns a company called East Edge Studios. They make games like Battle Beast, Royale, and a few others, and that's pretty fun. But one of the later projects I'm working on right now is actually from a Marine who's just getting out of the service. He wanted to form his own game company called Realism Studios, and I'm working on like a military type game with him for PC and console currently. So it varies, but I would say the most successful ones, or at least the ones that I would say most likely get off the ground, are the ones that are already doing something with like what they're doing.
Mm.
Like a Marine, he has knowledge of like all this stuff, while the other guy I was working with, he already formed his own company. So I feel that success is usually more, um, it's most likely the game's gonna be out in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I feel, and how long have you been doing this for?
Oh, I've been a freelancer, like off and on for many years, but I would say professionally, I've been doing this for just past 11 years now.
11 years, a long
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Um, and how did you get started in the first place? Were you working at a company doing this type of work for a game company, and then, you know,
No,
then
I
you,
kind of had to pull myself up my own bootstraps because when I graduated from college, it was like right during the recession.
mm,
So, and I was living in Florida at the time, so there was not a lot of companies hiring. So I had to move to California, and nobody there was hiring either. So I ended up coming to Arizona and just kind of just making my own space, do my own thing for the most part. I mean, I'll collaborate with a lot of companies. Like I've collaborated with like AT&T. I've had a project with like Coca-Cola and some other companies through like other clients, but most of the time it's just on my own.
wow. And 11 years ago, that's prior to Upwork being started, I believe. So
Technically, it used to be called Odesk
Odesk,
before a
that's
company
right.
bought them out and made them Upwork.
Okay, so Odesk was started in like 2005, I think, somewhere around there. So
Yeah.
that would have been around for you. I forgot about that. Um, and so you've been working on Upwork slash Odesk since 2009, 2010.
Technically, I think I made my profile around just after 2012.
Okay. And
But
mhm.
however, right after I graduated in 2009, my first client was picked up by a company, and they had me doing like models for like promotional based stuff and all that. So that's kind of where I got my start. But it didn't actually start to take off until I started working on my own, like Upwork and Odesk.
Got it. So you were doing like, some work here and there, and then once you made your profile, that's kind of when it started to become more consistent.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it took a long time to get up and running, just because I mean, I'm just a guy, got out of college, so no one's gonna know me. So it takes a
Yeah,
lot to get into, especially with how oversaturated the market is with 3D artists and things that people do what I do. It's really easy to get lost
in the
in the
mess.
sea. So yeah.
And did you study this in college? Was this something that or was this something that you learned afterwards?
I went to college for 3D animation, but 90% of what I know now is stuff that's based on my own studies.
Got it. And your own studies, is this just you researching on the internet? Did you take like courses? It's just from you practicing again and again and again?
A little from everything. Like I'll buy books about like anatomy, or I'll study anatomy, to get that down, like the basics and
Mm,
forms and all that, or just like the fundamentals. Yeah, a lot of research goes into it, like researching online tutorials, etc., learning new software, new techniques, that kind of thing. Learning about add-ons that might make my life easier. So
gotcha.
I mean,
Uh,
it evolves. I mean, what you learn in college, I guarantee you, 5 years from then, after you leave college, you're gonna learn a lot of new things because you have to adapt.
yeah. Um, and in terms of like the softwares that you use, so those engines, Unreal Engine, that's just the
Mhm.
game. That's just the game engine, right?
Yeah.
But the software that you use to create the different 3D models is separate from that, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So what is that? I've heard of a couple like Cinema 4D. I don't know if that's anything that you would
Yeah.
use, but
I mean, I don't
um,
use it, but I know of it.
okay. So yeah, I guess which softwares do you use, and what do they allow you to do?
Okay. Well, I started off in Maya, but eventually I switched off to Blender, which is what I currently use. Blender is basically can do almost anything. You can model with it. You can lay out UVs, texture, rigging, animation. 90% of my workflow comes from Blender, but for other stuff, I use a lot of other software as well. Like I use like Substance and 3D Coat for like my texture work, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And I'll even use ZBrush for my sculpting and whatnot before it all goes into Unreal or Unity.
Got it. And for those that don't know, if you could explain like the process, if you could explain, yeah, a little bit about your process. Say if you're going to build a 3D animation that moves, kind of what are the steps? Because you explained to me a little bit prior to us recording about building your skeleton, which is rigging,
Mhm.
and then adding kind of features on top of that. So if you could explain like a little bit about like the development process, I think that would be cool.
Sure. Well, it all starts from a good concept, like an idea of what you want. So there's a lot of sketching involved. But after that, what you would do is you would model it in like Blender or Maya or whatever your package of choice would be, and then you would make sure that your edge flow is good for like deformation. You always have to think ahead. Like you always have to think about, you're going to be animating this, so you have to think about how it's going to move and how the vertices of your model are going to behave when you're moving your mesh.
Hmm.
And after that, you would lay out your UVs, and then you would like, do like your texturing or your sculpting, so you get like your normal map details depending on if you want to have, like, if you want to put it into a game engine. And then you would make a skeleton for it, like a bone skeleton for it, and you would align it with your model. And then you would paint your weights so that it deforms properly. And then you would add on some things to make your animation life easier, such as like inverse kinematics, um, I forget what they call them, like bone objects, so that you are not like getting blinded by all the different bones and the different things on the screen. And after that, of course, you would have your texture and all that, and then you would export it out into your game engine, to test it to see if it works. And if it does work, great, you did it well. And then you would animate it in Blender, like whatever you need to, depending on what your client wants, what you need to do. So like walk animation, etc.
Um, that's really cool. So, and for somebody that's listening who's like maybe thinking about doing this, is this something that you have to go to college for in
No,
order to learn?
no.
Okay.
I don't regret going to college. It helped make a lot of connections and just to open my eyes to like what you can, just what the world's like, pretty much. So if you have the means to do it, It's not a bad idea, but don't expect to be a master going to college. I mean, 90% of what you know it's basically what you put into it that you're really going to come out with, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Totally does.
Like you can learn. I mean, when I was first going to school and all that, I didn't have nearly as many resources as like people do now today. I mean, you can learn everything you need to online on YouTube and Twitch and everything else.
Yeah.
But for the connections and just even for the motivation, it's not a bad idea. Just be careful what college you pick though, because a lot of them won't teach you much and they just want your money.
Yeah.
So
It's a big business. That might be something interesting for you to do though. Just create like your own virtual school for this. Ever thought about that?
I thought about it, but I don't know if I'd make a good teacher or not.
I think you would. You're pretty good at explaining this stuff.
Thank you. I
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah. And is it just video game stuff, or you said that you've done obviously like work with like Pepsi and big companies like that? Explain a little bit about that type of work and the other type of work that you do and what it's used for. Is it like
Okay.
commercials?
Well, I started off doing a lot of advertising-based stuff and like promotional stuff for like cons and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've also learned like CAD-based software like SolidWorks, so I've done like some product design-based stuff as well, you know, throughout my history. For like Coca-Cola and AT&T, most of those projects are actually augmented reality based or like made for like a business summit. In fact, back in, I want to say it was 2016, 2017, I made a demo showing, I don't remember what it was for, but it was basically showing how like they connect through like their through their systems and all that. And it was like an interactive demo they had at like their business summit.
And they had like AR or VR goggles that you would put on and you would be able to watch it.
Oh no, that was just like a screen that you would like touch on
Oh, okay.
and you can actually interact with it. But one of the later projects I'm working on right now is actually, I can't get into too much detail with it, but it is an augmented reality demo where you use your phone and you actually see like whatever it is, you know, like superimposed on your surface. And it's showing off like AT&T like 5G capabilities and what it can do for like the military and stuff like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, really cool stuff.
That is really cool. And it's for AT&T?
This one, yes. And the Coca-Cola one was supposed to be, it was basically like a little miniature virtual reality game we were working on, but it was just before the pandemic hit. So it unfortunately didn't go anywhere because of it. Sadly, it was a lot of fun. I wish it would have made it. It was great.
And on those types of things, I mean, how many people, I guess, are you, you know, because you're one guy, right? So are they calling you in just to build the art and that, or not the art, you know, I'm probably using the wrong terms here, but just to build the models and then somebody else is kind of putting together everything else, or you're putting together all like the entire model, animation, everything, and then, you know, then they have somebody come along and edit it a bit more, or kind of how does that process work?
Well, a lot of the times it's a lot of like smaller companies that come to me, so they'll have me do everything, you know, modeling, animation, everything. And if they have like another person on board, like an artist, if they want things faster, then we'll usually like divide the work. Like for example, when I was working with East Edge, they had another guy they brought in named Peter, really nice guy, and he did a lot of like the concepting and a lot of like the texture painting while I work on like the modeling, rigging, the animation kind of stuff. So it really depends.
Got you. And a company like Coca-Cola and AT&T, and these are really big companies. So do they find you on Upwork, or is it just that you had worked with them before through a connection? How did you land gigs with them? And are companies like this actively searching on, you know, freelance marketplaces?
Well, I don't know. I don't think they're actually actively searching. Basically, what'll happen is they'll come to like a bigger company, and you know the bigger company will basically be like the middleman between it, and then they'll come to me and say, "Hey, this company needs this kind of work. Are you in?" I'm like, "Yeah, bring it on." That's pretty much how it is. And then whatever feedback they have, whatever, usually goes through that other company. I don't usually interact directly with them, but I am working on projects that they're paying for. If that makes sense.
So they're paying a smaller company, and then that smaller company uses you as a contractor.
Yeah,
essentially.
Exactly.
Got it. It's very interesting. And besides, so it's commercials, video games, anything else? Or is that generally the two things that you're doing?
Product design. I
A
work on
product
some
design.
YouTube videos based stuff. Virtual reality, augmented reality.
Let's talk about virtual reality and augmented reality,
Okay.
because I think this is like such a cool space, and you're clearly in it. What do you think the future? Because it's like we have these devices, right?
Mhm.
Like we have companies like Oculus. I mean, I think it's pretty cheap, and it's pretty remarkable. Why do you think? One, what do you think the future of it looks like, and also why is it not as common as like the iPhone at the moment, considering how like the amount of stuff we could do with it. You know what I mean? I
Well,
could be sitting in your office right now. You know?
well, it's all just opinion, so don't base it on fact. But
Yeah.
I believe the two biggest hurdles for virtual reality is price of admission and the technology. I don't think the technology is quite there yet. You're still wearing a bulky headset, and I don't think a lot of people really want to deal with that. And on top of that, I don't think there's anything like any real killer apps out there to really justify people wanting to return to VR. I mean, it's fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love virtual reality. I've always have since I was a little kid. But there's nothing. A lot of the games and stuff are just either gimmicky or you play them once and that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing really making people return, in my opinion.
Got it. Yeah, because I just wonder, like, it would be great if this Zoom could be like, you're sitting right next to me. You know?
Well, that's going to happen actually. There's a lot of companies who actually hire me on to make like virtual avatars and stuff like that. So I mean, I definitely see, and at least I pray that VR definitely makes it that far, and I think it will. I think that as long as companies keep like bringing out new and more efficient hardware, it will happen. But I also think a lot of companies who make these super expensive headsets lose a lot of money because, like I said, price of admission. Nobody wants to pay $1,000 for a Valve Index
Yeah.
unless you're really that dedicated to the technology. I think Facebook Oculus is doing it right. They're having these more affordable headsets that are not tethered to your computer. I think that's the way it should go.
Mm.
And I wouldn't be surprised in the next 5 years if things are definitely more mainstream with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens with them. Because, yeah, theirs, I think, are by far the most affordable.
Yeah, and they're also the most practical too.
I heard, yeah, because they're not connected to the computer. Um, and I've heard, it's rumored that Apple is supposed to come out with one in 2022. And supposedly, and this is just something I read on the internet, I don't know if it's true, but they're supposedly going to be like really expensive. It's going to be kind of like a premium item. It's going to be like $1,000 or something for one.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and they'll be able to get it because they're Apple. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So you said companies are actively are hiring you to build like little avatars and stuff like that. What will those be used for?
Most of the time, they have me build an avatar, or sometimes even an environment for like business meetings, like business conferences, especially during like the pandemic and all that. They want to have a lot of these virtual, remote like meetings and conferences. And since you can't really meet in person, they have me basically build avatars and scenes for them.
That's really cool. Yeah, and the difference between AR and VR, of course, is AR they would need somebody like you to create these models, right? And then VR, is it more like just placing me in a room with you as opposed to like the virtual model or the character model? Is that the difference?
No.
Okay.
Augmented reality is basically where you take your phone and you use your camera to say you look at it like a table or a desk.
Mm-hmm.
And what it'll do is it'll superimpose a 3D model or an animation or something on that desk. Virtual reality is
So like Snapchat filters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
If you go
yeah,
into
definitely.
Snapchat, like if I took a video of my face and I pressed one of the filters, it would put a beard on my face,
Exactly.
or make my nose bigger or something.
Yeah, that would be augmented reality. Virtual reality is the same sort of process where you make models and you make characters and all that, except it's more involved. Like you have to have whole environments and you have to have characters and all that. that you're actually being immersed in. Like if you ever played a game like Half-Life Alyx or like the Valve Index or even Oculus Quest, it's a lot more immersive. While AR is very neat and I love AR, virtual is way more immersive because you're actually in the experience as opposed to just kind of looking at it with your phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, the process still works the same way. Like you're building 3D models, animations, that kind of stuff.
Got it. And for VR, being fully immersed in the experience, like it, looks like you're literally, in a different universe when you put the goggles on. Are they able to put, like, I know so they can do it with characters. Can they do it with other people? So if you had I guess they can't, but if you had a headset on and maybe had a camera on yourself, can they place you in the same virtual setting as me?
I'm sure there's technology that's trying to get to that, but not yet. I think the closest you're going to get with something like that would be something called photogrammetry. It's
photo imagery, you said?
Grammetry.
Grammetry. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, photogrammetry is basically where you take an actor and you sit them in a room surrounded by a whole bunch of cameras and you take a picture of them. And what you do is you take all that data and you put it into a computer that basically takes a bunch of like what's called like point clouds, and you form a 3D model using that point cloud. And then you would take it into something like ZBrush or even like Blender, and you clean up the model and optimize it for whatever you need. And if you have a good setup, you can even get like the textures of what that person is wearing too, is like the whole skin and everything. It's basically like the motion capturing like 3D modeling. That's the way I would describe it. And if you don't know, and motion capture would be when you wear like a suit and they film you like doing an animation with like these little nodes on you, and then they would record that and they would put that on a rigged skeleton model. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And how accurate do these models get? Obviously, it's not a picture of their skin, but it was based on a bunch of different sensors that were, right? Or
well, for motion capture, yeah, you use the sensors, but for like photogrammetry, it's literally just that. You're just taking a picture and you're making them 3D for the most part. Yeah. Yeah, so you have the cameras all around them, taking the picture of them at every single angle to get every single like bit of like texture information, just like geometry data and all that. And yeah, you're literally making them into a 3D model.
That is so crazy. So it would look like me.
Yeah.
If I put the headset on, if you put the headset on and somebody did all the pictures of me, it would look like me. It wouldn't be a character version. It would literally like.
Yeah, it would literally be you. It would be scary accurate. Yeah.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah. Well, they use that in Hollywood. I mean, they've been using that for many years now. Like Hollywood movies, that's how you get like really super realistic human beings now.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because if they can do that, if they can nail that at like a large scale, and I think we're probably, I don't know, pretty far out from that. I don't know. But if they could do that where you had a camera on you or something, and you could at least pop your head in, if they just had one thing modeling your face in real time, that would be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're really far off for something like that because you have to have like a view of everything around you.
Mm-hmm.
But one day, you never know. I mean, I remember going to a place called Seagrass a long time ago. They were showing off these things called 4D TVs. I mean, it's just a guy running, but it was like a holograph from like Star Trek. And you could walk around this image of this guy running in like this sort of like holographic thing. It was really cool.
Wow, that is crazy. Yeah, I mean, I guess if they did one model of you ahead of time, if everybody went in and got their model done, and then that you had that model, and it was kind of like when every 5 years you got to renew your model, like renewing your license.
Yeah.
And then they could somehow use that, but again, I don't know how it would work in real time with you moving that model. I guess you'd have to have some sensors connected to you, which are then connected to your computer, but some suit. Right.
Well, for movement, actually, it's gotten a lot more advanced over the years. Like there are people on like Twitch TV that have like these real-time avatars that with cameras that actually follow their facial movements. It's not super accurate, but we're getting close to something like that. So all you have to do is just like have a photogrammetry model that's like rigged and ready to go, and just have a camera in front of them that can actually just track the movement.
Got it. So you'd have something that took the photo and then created the model, and then the camera that just tracks the movement would would move that model for you in real time as the camera tracks you, but it
Yeah,
wouldn't be your face. Yeah.
yeah, like think of it as like I'll try my best to describe this, but think of it as like
Describe it in dumb people terms.
I'll try. But yeah, basically like you take your mesh, like your model of you, and then you have a skeleton on, you have like all like your deformation, everything ready to go, and you would use like your camera, depending on what kind of software you have. You would basically superimpose that model of you on top of, well, you, and it would mimic like your mouth movements. Maybe some of them will even like track your eye movement and stuff like that too.
Wow.
Just by using like your camera. It's really cool.
That is crazy. And how far off do you think we are from something like that?
We're already doing stuff like that. Like if you look on Twitch TV, some people already have like these virtual avatars. But for like human models, like photogrammetry based stuff, I mean, it depends really. It could be a few years. I mean, like I said, the things we see now are still pretty. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing with the photogrammetry thing is just the fact that it takes a gigantic production to make it happen.
You need a setup. You don't need as big of a studio as it used to. I mean, you can even like home brew your own like photogrammetry studio. I mean, if you have a really good artist and a good camera setup, you could do it with just like a couple of people and maybe a few dozen cameras.
Wow.
Or even just a few cameras if you're really good at placement and lighting.
And wow, that would be really interesting. Like if somebody could do that and then host like a fitness class,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and film their own fitness classes and then offer it out to everybody that had, Oculus goggles or something. So how does that work in terms of like Oculus, right? Or these other VR headsets / companies? Is there, so obviously like something like the iPhone, right? There's like the App Store, so you can host on there. Or if you want to go on the internet and you want to watch something, right? We have the whole web. For something like this, how do you, if you wanted to create something and give it to the masses, how do you, publish it, I guess?
Depends on what platform you're on. You could do it through Steam, which I mean, I personally recommend because Steam, you could use it with your Oculus and you can use it with like your Index. But if you're just going straight like Facebook Oculus, they have their own app store that you can post stuff on.
Oh, they do.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who has the Oculus can go on there, and anybody who wants to create something, some VR experience can publish it there.
I'm sure they have.
I'm sure they have some boundaries, obviously, and
Yeah.
some checks and balances there. But okay.
But like layman dirty terms, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow. And in terms of a setup for somebody, if they were like an individual and they had that idea and they were like, that might be interesting. Let me see if I can, put together some type of virtual experience for my business or something. You said that, they would need like a small production team in order to get that going. What type of equipment is required in that process?
Well, if they wanted to do like some sort of photogrammetry setup, I mean, the problem is if you have a bunch of clients coming in there and that you can't really take photos of. I mean, granted, there is software out there. In fact, I was working on an app that could do something kind of similar where you take a picture of yourself and it turns you into an avatar. But like I said, technology isn't quite there yet. But for like the fitness kind of stuff, I mean, yeah, all you would need is just like, if you're doing the whole photogrammetry route, you would need like a green screen, you would need like a bunch of like cameras that would just, whatever your instructor is, and then you would have like a team of artists or even just like a couple of artists would clean it up. They would make an optimized model that could run in like VR, and then you would basically like rebake the texture onto that model. If that makes sense.
Got it. And then
pretty much be good to go.
Once they make the model, can you? So say they made one model of me, and I wanted to host a class. Could I use that same model again and again and again, and then just wear some type of suit that moved in order to do my recordings?
And the great thing about avatars is you can dress them however you want. And you want them to come in with a big old bunny helmet or something on, go for it.
Wow.
Whatever you want.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
This is really cool. And it must be just a really exciting space to work in general, because it's only getting crazier.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, like I said, I've been doing this for over 11 years, and I love what I do. I mean, granted, there's definitely like your frustrations. You have to work hard. You're gonna have your good days. You're gonna have your bad days. But at the end of the day, I never regretted my decision to do what I'm doing.
Mm, that's awesome. Not many people say that, or get to say that. So, um, if so, I guess so if they did the photogrammetry, they took photos of you. They came up with the model. Somebody like yourself brushed it up, cleaned it up. They had the model. Once they have the model, um, how does it work in terms of the rest of the production? So if I wanted to host, my fitness class, could I do it live, or would it all be recorded? Um, how would that kind of work?
Well, I mean, a lot of what you're talking about hasn't really been made yet, as far as I know.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of like hearsay or just like based off of my own experience. It may not be completely accurate. But yeah, once you get the model like and like the skeleton and everything, and you have everything in like in VR, then yeah, you would just like pop in with your avatar. And the great thing about like the Oculus headsets and even like the Index is they have sensors, so they detect your movement. So you can move down, up, left, right, look around. It's got full, like full detection. And you also have like these controllers that act as like your hands. So it
Mm,
detects like your hand movement. So you could do whatever you want. You could have like a workout session. You could like shoot bad guys from behind a vehicle, whatever you want.
that is crazy.
Yeah,
You could work out at the same time and shoot bad guys. That'd be very entertaining for your clients.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a new idea.
That's cool. It's amazing. And so you have controllers. So you have a controller in one hand, another hand, and then you have like straps on your feet or something that detect, your feet moving.
No,
Or
I don't think they have anything like that right now. But I mean, the technology is also changing all the time. Like for example, the Oculus, like Facebook, they released a patch. I don't know if it's completely out yet, out of beta, where you can actually use your own hands to control your virtual movement. So you can actually literally use your hands to pick up virtual objects without using a controller.
oh wow, so the goggles are probably looking at your hands, or they have some
Not even.
sensors.
Yeah, it just detects where your hands are, and I think you have to be relatively close to where your sensors are, of course.
Yeah,
But instead
probably
of
has
using like
probably has proximity sensors or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. It has like gyroscope, like gyro sensors everywhere, like 6 degrees, or I forget the technology behind it. But yeah, you can actually use your fingers to actually pick up objects. I don't think it's out of beta. I don't think it's like a mainstream thing yet. But I remember playing with it a little bit, and that's where VR is definitely going to go. I mean, picture a day where you have these really slim-looking goggles on, and you use your hands as movements, like what's the name of that movie? Johnny something. It had the guy from the Matrix in it. Johnny
Well,
something.
I don't know.
It's an older movie, but it had a picture of him with like some VR goggles, like messing with things with his hands, and that's how it's going to be if VR is allowed to mature.
So you think it's going to be kind of not these big bulky goggles, but it's kind of going to be these slimmer goggles
Oh yeah, and in
where,
fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a pair of like a pair of sunglasses one day.
wow, that would be crazy.
Yeah, which would basically introduce the concept of mixed reality, which is like a mixture of both augmented and virtual reality.
And what would that look like?
Uh,
What is
well,
so that mixture would be like you could do two things. You could be looking at the glasses that are in front of you, kind of like your phone screen, and
mhm.
then the other option would to be go into the actual virtual space.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but picture like you're in a room, right, like with like some white walls, whatever.
Hmm.
A mixed reality of that would be maybe you put on like a really slim pair of glasses, and everything is like you're like a whole new world. Like maybe like you're in like an alien desert or some other world.
Wow.
But the augmented portion would be like detection of like where your walls are or something like that.
Wow. That is cool. Um, that is very, very cool. It'll be interesting. So what do you, in terms of time horizon, obviously this is just a ballpark guess, but in terms of, kind of like the average person being able to do kind of like the fitness thing that we just talked about,
Mhm.
what, with, you'd have to the steps would be to obviously have to create some type of photogrammetry model, or you could create the character model, um, that's more like kind of augmented. Um, So you had those two options. The character model thing's kind of working right now a little bit. The photogrammetry thing is a little bit far out. But if you could make a model pretty quickly and everybody could have one, and then, something as powerful as Oculus right now that can kind of read where your arms and legs are and watch you in real time. In terms of a time horizon for getting kind of close to that, what do you think?
So if you're saying, assuming that we don't have the equipment for like photogrammetry stuff, like I'm doing this all by scratch.
I guess the first question would be, how would we even the equipment for speeding up the photogrammetry stuff? That would have to just, everybody would have to have a camera that could pretty much do what you do.
Oh yeah, if you're talking about like real time kind of stuff
Yeah,
like that. Yeah. I mean, like I said, photogrammetry isn't ever supposed to be like real time,
yeah.
like things like that. You basically would just take that, you turn it into a 3D model, and that would take some work to optimize, because we're talking like thousands, like millions of like vertices and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. It's difficult to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for photogrammetry, it would definitely be a lot quicker if you wanted to go that route, just to make your avatar, and it'd be a lot more accurate too. But I would say if you have the model there and you have to clean it up and you had to get it like animated and rigged, I would say maybe around like 20 hours, maybe
20,
25,
20 hours. Okay. And
depending on depending on how messed up the model and how much you have to clean up. And then like you have to do like your low poly modeling on top of that to optimize it for like whatever platform you're on. And then you have to like do your UVs and rebake the texture, and you have to get your skeleton on and all that. So
well, and in terms of cost for something like that, generally speaking, top to bottom, how much would something like that cost to create the model?
oh, to create the model, assuming I already have the model, it would be
Or not if you already have it. Sorry. If so from top to bottom, we're doing photogrammetry of me for a fitness class. I mean, how much what would that ballpark be?
is it with equipment included, or just
Well, if you just rented equipment or something, or you hired a crew to do it. I don't even know if you can do it like that, but
yeah, you can rent studios and whatnot, but to be honest, I never rented a studio, so I couldn't tell you how much that would cost. But
yeah.
if you just had an artist work on like getting all that done, uh, 5 to 10,000 maybe, depending.
Gotcha. So,
And it's just ballpark.
and that was gonna be my next question. What are your rates? And then we'll kind of wrap up.
Okay, yeah. Currently, I charge around 55 an hour.
Okay.
What I do. I mean, if it's a smaller business and they tell me a good enough bleeding heart story, I might lower it a little bit. But for the most part, that's
Everybody listening. That's
rate.
what you got to do. All right. If you find Matt on Upwork, you need to just give him a heartwarming story, and he'll give you a discount.
I've heard a lot of stories, so you got to make it really hard. Make it creative too. I like creativity.
That's funny. Anyway, all right, Matt. Thank you. I think we're coming up on an hour here, so we'll wrap it up. That was really, really interesting. I'm very happy we did this.
Yeah, me too.
So thank you for coming on. And yeah, I would love to chat in the future. And, I got to maybe get a little bit more grounded in the space in general. But I'd love to continue this in maybe a couple months and do this again or something, talk about some new stuff.
Yeah, definitely. If you ever have any questions or anything, yeah, feel free to hit me up.
Sounds good. All right, Matt, thank you. And send me the links to everything that you got after this. I will include it. I don't know if you have your own website or okay, perfect. So just send me all those. I'll make sure to include that. I'm gonna do a little write up on you as well. Otherwise, I think we covered it all. We're still recording, by the way. So thank you, everybody, and Matt, we'll talk soon. Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.